Welcome to the Scoop World Order. Happy Saturday. I hope you guys had a great day. Wonderful weather in Columbus. Memorial was on fire. A lot of great stuff going on in Columbus. A lot of great sports. NHL Stanley Cup playoffs start tonight. Team USA is playing Colombia right now in soccer. There's a lot of great stuff going on. But I just appreciate you guys taking some time on your Saturday. We're going to talk about a humongous official visit weekend, 2 in a row for Ohio State. As star-studded as I've ever seen for 2 straight weekends, basically 5 stars all over the board. Great offensive lineman. Huge weekend for the Buckeyes. We're going to get a little bit into what's going on and what we're hearing, what buzz there is. As always, we appreciate you guys. If you guys enjoy this content, please leave us a like, click subscribe. Also, click that little alert bell. Again, we appreciate you guys each and every night for coming in with us, kicking it with us. As always, I just got to say a quick shout out to my guy, ZZM. Happy birthday. He's on here every day. He's one of the regulars, like a lot of you guys, like Mello, Nicole, Steely. All you guys that are in here, we love you guys. Again, we appreciate you guys. Karis, Beth, Deb, thank you all. Again, we love our regulars. We're very grateful for you guys. Thank you guys so much. But we had to give a special shout out for ZZM's birthday. So happy birthday, ZZM. As always, we appreciate you guys all being on here. It's like a big family, and we love seeing you guys kick it each every night. This will be a huge show because you guys make it one. Again, thank you guys for all that you do. It is always a pleasure to be here, and it is a pleasure to have you guys here on our podcast. But we're going to get right into it. Nevada, I mean, this is 2 of the biggest official visit weekends I've ever seen at Ohio State, and they got them back to back. A lot of star power, a lot of national kids that are superstars, a lot of kids that would be fantastic takes in this class. What are your thoughts? Week 2 of the recruiting. This is kind of like the bottom part of the sandwich when you had last weekend, then you had camps all week, and then you have a huge official visit weekend. What are your thoughts on where Ohio State is with their evaluations and their recruiting thus far through the summer?
Well, I mean, obviously they're recruiting at a super high level right now, and it's just what's been interesting is just watching kind of the subtle changes in Ohio State recruiting, because Ohio State recruiting's always been good. Ohio State recruiting was good under John Cooper. It was good, under Jim Tressel. It was great under Urban Meyer, and it continues to be great under Ryan Day. But you can always improve. You can always learn things. You can always kind of go about things. And what I think has been interesting this year is I think they've been using more peer-to-peer selling this year than at any time that I can remember. I mean, that's always been kind of a part and parcel of recruiting. But man, this year they're making it a feature. And this week again, you've got Davian St. Clair, you've got Nate Roberts. Nate Roberts, up already a committed guy coming up on a visit, and it's just been notable because every time that you talk to the recruits or you talk to the recruits' families, they're always mentioning other recruits and how other recruits' families are helping out with the decision process, how other recruits are recruiting them in terms of the process. And I've heard that since the Brew Crew, but never to this extreme. And I just, you wonder what Ohio State has kind of figured out about that or what they've tapped into. But I'm telling you, I think that's really the story of the 2024, recruiting season, the 2025 class has been how much Ohio State has been using their key guys, the other recruits to do the heavy lifting in terms of the recruiting for them. And this weekend's no different. It's another weekend where you've got a bunch of guys that are in there on their official visits, and you've got guys that are in there that are just there. And I think that's a great thing that Ohio State is doing. I think it's going to pay big dividends in the 2025 class. And as you mentioned, this weekend is just loaded with guys from all over the country. And when you have that, when you've got guys like Jackson Lloyd, from Carmel, California, or McFadden or Stargell or Quincy Porter, you want those guys to bond with other people that they're going to be playing with, that they're going to be recruited with, and you want them to see their quarterback. You want them to see Tavian St. Clair, a guy who's in the discussion to be the number 1 player in the country, a guy that's a 5-star quarterback, kind of the leader, kind of the unofficial captain of the class. And that's what Ohio State's doing. And I just, like I said, I tip my hat to Ryan Day and the staff and everything that they've done and all the little enhancements they're rolling out as part of this recruiting thing, because it's palpable how much success we're having. And when you compare it to other schools, like again, Michigan, you realize just what rare air we're operating in right now with the number of guys that we're in at that are top 10 players at their position, top 10 players in the country. And this weekend is a great weekend, and next weekend is going to be another great weekend. So the hits just keep on coming.
Yeah, and I'm really interested. Fahim Delane is here. He is, I think, the best safety in the country. He's a fantastic player. I think he's a 5-star. He's the number one player in Maryland. He's from Good Counsel, which is probably the best school in Maryland, and he's a big, rangy dude. Again, in a safety-driven defense where you've got to play big-time safeties. This guy's a difference maker. I'll show some Jackson Lloyd next, but I love his film. He's dynamic. He does a lot of stuff. I love guys that are safeties that can return kicks too, because it's kind of like the Ed Reed thing where if you get your hands on it, you can take it to the crib, and that's something that he's excellent at. It'll be interesting because I think Javon McFadden is the guy that's in the boat, and there's a lot of goodwill around him right now. He's an offensive lineman, also from Maryland. Andrew Stargell is a guy that's interesting. Jackson Lloyd, I think, is, outside of David Sanders, I think is at a separate tier from everybody else. Then Carter Lowe is probably right behind him. Jackson Lloyd is real close to Carter Lowe, in my opinion. He's 6'7", giant, rangy kid that could play right tackle, left tackle. Again, I think you look at David Sanders, Carter Lowe, you get those tall, lanky guys that have long arms that are great for pass protecting. I think those are huge gets. Quincy Porter is interesting. Another kid who came in, another receiver. Des Jones is in. That's a kid that we actually did a Phenom video on Des Jones like 3 years ago in the Buckeye Scoop archives. It was one of our huge Phenom videos where we talked about Des, because I actually became very tight with his high school coach. And he told me about him. He's like, hey, I got this kid. He's going to be a sophomore, but he played varsity as a freshman. And I think against like Don Bosco or something, he had like 7 catches for like 114 yards or something crazy as a freshman versus like a top 10 national team. So he didn't play a ton, but in some of the biggest games, he was like their lead guy, and it was impressive. And then I looked at some videos of him, and it was funny because you were breaking down like JV film and like his 8th grade tape and stuff. But he was a phenom, and sure as can be, he's a Buckeye. Like Penn State, I remember Penn State went on him. I told Ohio State about him, and they went on him, and he's a Buckeye. So it's crazy how things work, the connections you make in life sometimes, and how things work out. But his coach told me that he loved Ohio State. So when Penn State went on him, then that's pretty close to Ohio State just in terms of the tier, because in recruiting, a lot of the offers are kind of like tier based, where it's like you get your MAC offers. Then you get your low Big Ten offers. Then you get your mid Big Ten offers. Then you get your S tier, top tier Big Ten offers, which is like Ohio State, Michigan, Oregon. And then up with Ohio State is Georgia, Clemson, Bama, the Texas, like the top tier offers. So when Penn State went on him that early, I knew that he had to be legit. He camped at Penn State. They liked him. And they went on him as literally you offer a kid after his freshman year, man, he's got to be really special. Because and he went to a real high school. So you can't, there's a lot of hoodwinks and 3-card money with these offers where they'll offer a kid, but it's not a real offer. It's not a committable offer. But you can't do too much of that at like a real high school, like a big time, like a St. Ed's or Massillon or somewhere like that, because then you're going to end up not getting, you're going to get some bad graces with those coaches. Those coaches run in pretty tight circles. And if Tommy Tuberville did that. I'll never forget when he did that. He got to Cincinnati and he pulled a scholarship from a kid from Massillon. And it was a quarterback, I think. And they literally said, don't ever come back here again, ever. So like when you do that, Tommy Tuberville was not an Ohio guy. He's an Auburn guy. But he did that, man. And it was really, really bad. Nevada, what are your thoughts? Again, I think that the peer-to-peer recruiting, it's something that I don't think people realize, because, there's you got to be comfortable in the locker room. Those are going to be your boys. Those are going to be the guys that you got to rely on to make hay and make it to the NFL and win national titles and beat Michigan and all that. But I don't think people talk about that enough. I think that, what you talk about with the players and the culture and those guys recruiting. I think personally the biggest things that you can do for recruiting are your NFL hit rates and success, and obviously winning. Kids want to go to a program that wins, and last, I think that it's just the development and the brotherhood that exists at Ohio State, where guys, they get to know each other on these visits, they hang out, they cut up. It's honestly a lot easier. There's a lot of walls that don't exist that used to exist because of social media. I mean, these kids are all Instagram buddies. They're all going to have each other's phone numbers, so they're going to be a lot tighter than even back in the olden times, in the medieval ages when I was getting recruited, and we had like instant messenger on AOL. It's like way different than Instagram and Facebook and X and all the other forums. So what are your thoughts on that? 'Cause I think that it is interesting, and again, I think that this is going to be another huge weekend, and then we got a third one that's also going to be a massive weekend. But your thoughts?
Well, I think what helps. I mean, the ideal situation, the perfect storm, is if you can have a 5-star, recognizable quarterback to kind of lead your class. That's like kind of the perfect storm. But the perfect storm is if that kid's an Ohio kid too. And so it's rare that happens. I'm trying to think about the last like 5-star quarterback type that we've had out of the state of Ohio. Coming to Ohio. I mean, it's. I mean, I don't remember. Was Braxton a 5-star? I mean,
I I'm
maybe
I'm
he was.
I'm pretty sure Braxton was, but let me look.
Yeah, Braxton.
Go
Yeah, Braxton might have been, but Justin Zwick was obviously that kind of a guy when he was coming out. Didn't turn out that way, but certainly in the recruiting rankings. But the point is, Ohio State doesn't have there's not a lot of those 5-star quarterbacks coming out of Ohio, and let alone having them go to Ohio State. And then when they commit early, so that they're not a late commitment, so they can lead that class. I just think it helps so much just across the board, especially now with 7-on-7, because 7-on-7
Mm-hmm.
before, like these guys they might have known about a guy, they might have seen about him, heard about him, whatever, but with 7-on-7 you can see them, and you're watching these guys play around the country all the time. You're hanging out with
Mm-hmm.
them, you're talking to them. So the 5-star quarterbacks, while they've always been important, they're now the super mega death robot meta when you're trying to recruit kids because of 7-on-7. And now that Ohio's got 7-on-7 football on top of that,
Yep.
it just became that much more important. So I think for Ohio State, it's kind of it's the perfect storm of opportunity, brand, momentum, success, stability, all hitting at once. And the result is just absolutely A++ recruiting. And this weekend's just another example of it.
Yeah, I think that you make a great point with 7-on-7, because man, I'm telling you, these guys that play 7-on-7, they get really tight because you go to these 7-on-7 tournaments, man. I mean, there's a lot of downtime. You play a game, then you're waiting around for an hour or 2 hours waiting for the next field to clear. Play another game. You're staying at a hotel somewhere all night. You're eating all your meals together, going to IHOP or Denny's, wherever they take you to eat breakfast, and go out to eat for lunch. And I mean, those guys can get really close. Honestly, I think that's something that's really underrated that people haven't talked about yet, is that when we get really, really good players in the state of Ohio and they get to go play for like South Florida Express, like, it's like kind of like an insurgency where you can, like if you got, Tavian St. Clair, and he's not as if he's quarterback this year, but if he was, like, I mean, it doesn't hurt, getting some of the skill guys that are on SFE to come up here when, hey, the quarterback, the leader of the class is playing here. And even if you're not on the same team, even if you're just at the same tournament, because Tavian's playing on a team that isn't SFE, but those guys all are still going to link up and say hi. And it's kind of like in the NBA after the games where everybody's buddy and hugging and kissing on each other and whatever. It's not like the Pistons in the old days and the Celtics who like hated each other. Now it's like everybody's buddies. So you go to these things, man, and it's just like a big, it's a big kind of swap meet of, hey, what are you hearing? What are you getting? What's your NIL do? What do you think of Ryan Day? What do you think of Chip Kelly? Like, it's so, I think that Ohio kids, especially great Ohio kids, being able to go to these tournaments now is huge for Ohio State, because, I think that when you get some of these guys that are leaders of the class, like Tavian St. Clair, and they're putting in work. They're coming down on these unofficial visits where they're hanging out with the official visitors and they're doing that. I think that, when you're Ryan, um, and Mark Pantoni and your Chip Kelly and these coaches, like if you really trust a kid and he's like one of the class leaders, like Tavion, dude, those guys, they're the best guys in the world to get information on these kids. Because, when you take these kids out at night during the official visits, when you hang out with them during the day, when they're away from the coaches and they can let their hair down, you know, if I'm Ryan and I'm asking Taven, hey, we want, what was the kid like? Was he cool? Is he a troublemaker? Did he act a fool when he went out? Like whatever. And that was something that like, they used to ask me a lot when we take recruits out, like, hey, what did you think of this kid? How was he? And I was honest. I was like, he's an a-hole or he's awesome. I'd love for him to be my teammate because I always wanted it to kind of be for the best interest of the, for the good of the order. And like, I wasn't out to like assassinate kids, but I would tell the truth. If a kid was acting like a moron when we went out at night, I was like, dude, I don't want to be around that guy ever again. And I would say that, and it wasn't, again, it wasn't to assassinate, but I mean, I was right on all those guys. Every guy that I said would be a turd turned out to be a turd. And it's something where I think that when you anything you can do to improve your hit rate as a recruiting coordinator, GM slash head coach slash position coach, it just makes your life a lot easier because the one great saying in college football is that and the same in the NFL, you recruit or you draft your problems. So, the deeper you can dive into these kids, the more you can know about these kids, what makes them tick, what's their home life like, are they going to act a fool when they get to college? Because again, we've seen, I mean, again, I don't want to get into the Air Nolan thing, but, Air has been all over the place with the team so far. And I think Air Nolan is a great kid. He played for SFE last year, saw him at a tournament, couldn't be a nicer kid, so I'm hoping that he, everything is straight and he balls out, he's here. But some of these kids, when they get away from home, man, it's hard. I mean, and I'm not just talking about kids from Georgia. I'm talking about kids from Cleveland. They get away from their house, man, and the kids get homesick. So that's why, like, I think it's real important when these guys get there that they need to, the coaches need to have their arms around them, like as soon as they get here, just to keep that temperature on them and make sure that they're straight. But like I said, I'm just excited for the direction of this. I think that we've got a ton of great momentum on the recruiting side for the offensive line. Nevada, what are your thoughts on that? Because again, the offensive line is like the number one concern of every Ohio State fan forever and ever and ever and ever and ever in recruiting. But I feel this is as good as I've felt in a long time about the recruiting of the offensive line and where we're trending with a lot of the top guys. What are your thoughts? And also, real quick before you go, Braxton, he was a 4-star on one side. He was a 5-star in 247. He was a 4-star on Rivals. So little blast from the past, young Braxton Miller. So the Braxton is a great kid. He's doing great work right now. And yeah, I figured I'd throw this up here because I honestly wasn't sure, but he was rated like 35th on Rivals and 20th on 247. But yeah, thank God we had him, man, because in 2012 we might not have won a game without Braxton. So, but go ahead, your thoughts on kind of the incoming potential offensive line in recruiting.
I think it's going to be, I've said this. I really believe from looking at what we've got and looking at who we're in on and looking at who we're going to get commitments from, I think this is going to be on paper the best offensive Ohio State offensive line class ever. And again, I'm not a Justin Fry apologist. I'm not a Justin Fry fanboy. I believe in you are what your numbers say you are, and by that measure, Stud was underrated by people. Fry has been overrated by people, but he can turn that around, and he can turn that around with this class. And if you're talking about a class that obviously started off with with Carter Lowe, but if you had Sanders and if you had Lloyd and McFadden and Stargell, I mean, Fanuku. I mean, you've got the foundation of a 5 or 6 person offensive line class that's could be terrific. And I'm going to predict that they'll get at least 2 commitments out of the offensive line from this weekend. And I'm gonna call it right. I'm gonna say McFadden and Jackson Lloyd are going to be Buckeyes, and that's a really good start on top of what you've already got. And I really believe this is going to be the come out year, the breakout season for Justin Fry from a recruiting standpoint. And I really think I think it's going to be all up from here. And I've been underwhelmed by him so far. I have, but I have high hopes for him. I know he can do it. I really believe this is the recruiting season here. It's all lined up for him to do it. The schools that would normally be competition are down. He's got a real great chance, a real great opportunity. He's really well positioned with all of them. And so that's what I feel about the offensive line recruiting. And people can hold me to that. But I'm going to call two commits coming out of this out from this weekend, and two really good players and real good additions to our class.
Well, I mean, the people I talk to that are at the top of the food chain in the athletic department, top of the food chain in the collective space, they can match any offer. So when it's time to go get David Sanders, we can't use NIL as an excuse anymore because we can go get that. We can go get that bag for a kid like that who's a prototype left tackle and a kid that we really need. So yeah, I'm excited. Like I said, I think that a lot of good momentum. I really think it helps when you have a big time quarterback in the class who's a leader. Like I said, and then like, if I'm a tackle and Paris Johnson just went 6 overall, like, why would you go anywhere else? I mean, Paris is going to end up being a Pro Bowler, and then you throw in DeWand, who's going to be an $80 million guy. Like, DeWand is unbelievably good. On top of Thayer and Nick Petit, I mean, you literally have 4 guys that are going to start in the NFL this year in 2 draft classes at tackle. I don't think it's ever happened in the history of Ohio State football. It hasn't happened in the last 25 years. I guarantee that, where we had 2 tackles start in the NFL within like a year. I mean, those guys were starting games as rookies and really doing a nice job. We could get into some super chats. Nevada, anything else before we get into some super chats?
No, it's I just, like I said, I love it when recruiting weekends come together. Like I said, great weekend in Columbus and great weekend for Ohio State recruiting. So really good.
I mean, Columbia is up 5-1 on Team USA right now. Yeesh. Wow. Come on, guys. Come on, Yanks. Good Lord.
That stinks.
That's a massacre. Yeah, it does stink.
Yeah.
Jim Duschel, I hope you're feeling better. Our guy Jim got a knee replacement. Sent me a very gnarly photo of what a knee replacement looks like. And it was, but he's motoring around good and doing great. I appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much for the 20. Do you think Friday Night Lights is gone for good? I think it is. The hard part with Friday Night Lights, man, is it was just such a pain in the butt because, like, you got to get all these players. So Friday Night Lights, for what you guys don't know, Urban, when he came back, he had all these these whiz bang ideas, and one was, he did this camp at Florida that was called Friday Night Lights, and he wanted to do it up here where it was basically a camp that is done at like the end of July. It's literally like a week before training camp or 10 days before training camp or something crazy like that. And it was always in the stadium. It was always open to the public. So you'd have a few thousand people show up and watch Curtis Samuel or Torrance Gibson or, whoever. A lot of really good players were at that camp. A lot of great players, 5-star kids, monsters. But I hated it. It sucked because you're so scared a kid's going to get hurt a week before he reports to camp. And I'm not talking about like an ACL. I mean, that can happen at any time. I'm talking about a pulled hamstring. I'm talking about a sprained ankle. Because right now, if it's if it's June, and a kid rolls his ankle, like, he's got time to get ready for August. But when you're a week away from training camp and you send a guy, a guy who's the best offensive lineman on the team, you send him home and he's got a rolled ankle or he can't condition, can't do 2 days. Like, that's a problem. So that was also it was kind of terrifying for us. And the other part that sucked is, like, Urban's first year, man, he wanted the best players in the history of the school to come back and coach. So he wanted Kirk Herbstreit and Orlando Pace and Big Daddy Wilkinson and Ricky Dudley and Joey Galloway and Eddie George. I mean, it was like, so, to wrangle those guys was a chore. So we all got assigned guys. Like, obviously I've told the story many times about me getting assigned to Orlando Pace, and he's like, you got to get Orlando Pace here. And, like, I didn't have an email. I didn't have a phone number. He's not on social. He wasn't on social media back then. He's on like Instagram now, but he was not on social media back then. So I'm just saying, like, I was up the creek. I'm like, I don't even know how to find Orlando. So, I get on LinkedIn and I start hitting up his former teammates, and, about 5 or 6 of the guys, were hitting me back. D Miller, I think he might've had a number. Larry Romanoff had a number. A bunch of these guys had numbers, and none of them worked. So I had all these different phone numbers for Orlando Pace, and they were all like disconnected. So, somehow I got a hold of him. I think I emailed him. His email worked. Um, or I might have just kept calling the phone numbers. I think eventually I got one that was his, but he never answered it. Then he finally called me back, and I was able to get him there. But it's hard because you got to get these guys fingerprinted. You got to get them background checked because of the Sandusky stuff, man. There's all these these mountains of red tape you have to do to get a guy there. And we had guys that didn't pass their background checks, excuse me. So they weren't allowed to coach. They had to just stand on the sideline, which was kind of not embarrassing, but it did kind of suck. Like when some of these guys wanted to get in there and coach and help out and be in the mix, and because like me and Orlando were like running drills together. It was hilarious. So, but I think it's probably dead. I mean, the camps are. It's hard to get guys there that late. July. I mean, usually it's like the last little bit of freedom that you have, and plus like these coaches in general are on vacation or they're kind of at the end of their vacation, get ready for training camp. So I think it's gone. I think it would be great if it wasn't, but I could be wrong. Nevada, you remember Friday Night Lights. And again, Jim, thank you. I hope you're healing up, my dude. I'll see you next week. Thank you for the 20. Do you think Friday Night Lights is gone for good? Your thoughts, Nevada?
Yeah, I mean, you just think about the time we've talked about, how the recruiting calendar has changed and how that's kind of moved around, and because of that, everything about Friday Night Lights would have to be different. Um, as you said, the whole that was back when the hype when camps actually were meaningful, and now like the calendar's changed. The emphasis on camps has changed. The importance of 7-on-7s has increased. So yeah, I think that's probably an idea that was a great idea at the time, a fun idea at the time, but sometimes things change and move on, and probably for the better. But I don't think we'll be seeing Friday Night Lights return anytime soon. But there'll probably be something different. They'll probably come up with something. And I don't know what it would be. I'd have to really give it some thought. But like one of the companies did a NIL conference where they had all the players come out there in terms of doing it, and maybe you do something like, I mean, as dorky as that sounds, but if you had a bunch of companies that were, I don't know what it would be, but it's got to be something different than it's got to be something that attracts the kids, that gets the kids to come, but isn't a competition based on the field, because I just don't think I just don't see that happening anymore.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that the hardest part is the shine. Really like wore off. Like because the guys that showed up again, it was like the first year was like A-listers. Everyone was like Ricky. Like I said, it was guys that you never see at Ohio State. You never see Dan Wilkinson. You rarely ever see Ricky Dudley. I think Chris Carter was there. You see him a lot more than the other guys. But some of these guys I'd never seen, and I've been around the program for 10 years, and I don't think I ever saw Big Daddy before, Wilkinson. Because a lot of these guys they don't come back. They're a lot of the guys that were my favorite teammates I haven't seen since like I left Ohio State in '07. So I mean they disappear. Like Chris Gamble, I would bet a large sum of money that I don't think Chris Gamble will ever come back to Ohio State. And it's not because he's like mad at Ohio State, but he's just not that guy. He was always a super quiet guy, great teammate, a monster on the field. But he just kind of keeps to himself. I mean, he didn't come back for the 2002 championship reunion. He didn't come back to the 10-year. He didn't come back to the 20-year. I mean, some guys, that's just kind of their shtick. He would never come to something like Friday Night Lights because he's a quiet dude. But a lot of those guys kind of keep to themselves. But after the first year, like those guys, like nobody got anything. You did it just kind of like to help the university. But for a lot of those guys, it was like they had to fly in. I think we took care of their flights in their hotel. But that was it. Like when you're a guy like Orlando Pace who made $50 million, like I mean, there's a lot of stuff you could be doing that where you could be compensated or doing something and not flying in for that. And I'm not saying that he didn't do it, but I mean the talent dropped off dramatically year over year. It became just a bunch of the kind of the D tier Ohio State guys that are at all these like random events that you see. It's like the same like 8 guys. Like that's what it ended up being. And I was just like, so it didn't have the cachet anymore. Just because, once you've done it, like it's hard. I mean, I think if they redid it now, and you could get like guys like Garrett Wilson and Olave and Paris and those guys to come back, I think it would be great because there's a lot of these NFL guys. If they came back, that's who the kids know. a lot of these kids at this camp, they had no idea who Dan Wilkinson was, even though he was the number one pick in the draft. They just, but like when you have contemporary NFL players, I think that would actually be a lot more magical, and that's what I would do because like Marvin Harrison was like Mick Jagger walking around for the last 2 years, and kids loved him. They wanted to take selfies with him and see him and talk to him and get him and Garrett and C.J. Stroud and Paris, and we got a lot of young superstars in the NFL that I think would do that. I think that would be the move, and you'll get CJ up there and have him say, "Hey, what Ohio State did for him," and whatever. And I think that would be that's what I would do. But I just think that I think camps are dying, man. I mean, they're going the way of the dodo, and we're lucky to get a couple good players to come to camps now, but it's nowhere near as deep as it used to be in terms of talent. Mello, appreciate you, brother. Thank you for being an ultra member. Thank you for the 5. Shout out to Mama D in the chat and to Devin putting in work with SFE. I love that he's playing with South Florida Express. Hi, Sanchez family. They are the best. Appreciate you, my friend. That's really cool. I know because I get told that, I mean, a ton of parents watch the show that are Ohio State fans, that are recruits. So again, we appreciate you guys. I'm actually going to put your son's film on. So get a little bit of Dev Sanchez going here so that mom can be happy. So I appreciate you being in the chat. Again, that's why we're real cognizant of what we do and what we say on here, just because we're the show that everyone watches. I mean, we're the one that's got the highest ratings. We're the ones that have, the parents watching, the kids watch, the recruits watch. So, we know that. So, we act a certain way, and it helps us, honestly. I mean, that's why we are where we are, and that's why we go every night. And I think people really appreciate how we conduct our business. And like I said, we're very fortunate. We're very blessed. And our community on here is unbelievable, second to none. So, if you're a parent of a kid who's getting recruited, these are the people that you should pay attention to, or the people that are in the Buckeye Scoop family and are on this, in our chat every night, because that's who's going to support your son. One day when he has an autograph signing or he needs an NIL deal or whatever, like these are the people that are going to support him. They'll say, "Oh, hey, I remember when your mom used to be on the Buckeye Scoop chat every night and she was awesome. And I just wanted to say that to you, and I want to come support you and pay, $50 for your autograph or $25 for your autograph or whatever." And, I think that it's all kind of cyclical. And so I appreciate you being on here. Again, I appreciate all the parents that are on here. And again, I appreciate all you guys for welcoming them and pointing them out. It's really cool of you guys. Nevada, your thoughts. Mello, again, thank you, Mello. You're the best. Appreciate you, brother. Thank you for the 5. Says shout out to Mama D in the chat and to Devin putting in work with SFE. And again, when you're playing corner at a 7-on-7 of that level, man, that is not fun. I mean, because there's no help. You're out there man to man the whole weekend. So there ain't no blitz. There's this little timer. So I hope he's putting in work, and I'm sure he's locking people down because he is a monster. It says Sanchez family is the best. Nevada, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the Sanchez family has been really, vital part of this success of this class. And it's funny that you mentioned though the support of the alumni. This is kind of a microcosm of that. But I've always said that any player that plays at Ohio State that doesn't take advantage of it, and all you have to be is just nice to people. You don't need to be super mega whatever. Just be nice. Archie Griffin has made a career out of being Archie Griffin. I know he won 2 Heismans, and I know, but that guy just smiles and shake hands and kiss babies and does his thing. And Archie has just made a career out of being Archie. And there's other guys that were better players, frankly, than Archie Griffin. Better players at the NFL, but not as nice. And if you're just nice to folks, man, the Ohio State community will take care of you, in abundance forever and ever and ever, in whatever walk of life you want to, pursue. Largest alumni base in the United States, and it's a blessing to have great players play here, but it's also a blessing for those players because they get a chance to access that and activate that alumni base and that supporter base and that fan base for the rest of their life. And that's for any kid that's coming to Ohio State, that's the first thing I'm saying, because it's everybody says they have it, but Ohio State actually has it, and it's different here.
Absolutely agree. Larry Daniels, 1, thank you for being ultra member. Thank you for the 5. Appreciate you, my friend. Do players and coaches who interact with kids on visits have special briefing training on how to reach these recruits? Or is it ad lib? Well, I think it kind of depends on the kid. Um, like, when I was a recruiting host as a freshman, usually it's like the freshmen and the sophomores are the recruiting hosts for the kids that are in high school, the seniors in high school on official visits. I got like no briefing. I mean, I hosted a kid named Izzy Balta who was terrible. He ended up going to Duke. Was a turd. A kid that was glad we didn't take. He never did anything in college. Who else did I host? I was with Mitchum and all those guys, Ben Person, Steve Raring. Like they all came on the same weekend. I think Izzy might have been with us that trip, but I can't remember. I hosted a couple guys, but um, I never was briefed. I think that it helps to brief. But I think a lot of these kids they know each other from camps. I mean, there's a lot more contact points now than there used to be because there's more camps. Some of these guys train in the same facilities. A lot of these guys play 7-on-7 together on one team, or they go to tournaments, competing on different teams and run into each other. Obviously, social media is huge. Even something as stupid as like online gaming, like guys can play video games, like play Madden against each other on Xbox. Like, there's just a lot of stuff that exists now where guys are just a lot closer than they could be previously. So I think if the recruiting guys are put out a little pamphlet and talk about what's going on, I think it's helpful, especially with parents. Um, because I would, if I'm, Justin Fry and I've got Monica Daniels in town and David Sanders is here, and I would say, Monica, this is David Sanders' mom. She likes to play, Yahtzee. Her favorite food is a Big Mac, like whatever. And just give them like as much of the high level baseball so that it just makes her, break the walls down and get to know her more than you normally would, And I think that that's something that, it comes with being a good recruiter is like, you got to really dig into these kids and figure out what they like. Like, I mean, when Taylor Decker showed up, man, I knew what his favorite video game was. I knew his girlfriend's name. I knew that they'd been dating for however many years. Obviously didn't marry her, married, different girl, but it's just like, I knew everything about Taylor when he showed up. So it was, and I didn't come out and say, hey, by the way, I know that you like to play 2K and Call of Duty and blah, 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 blah. It's like, I just kind of, could guide the conversation, kind of get them relaxed, and make him feel comfortable. Cause I mean, we knew we were going to flip him because the two guys that recruited him, Tim Hinton and Ed Warner, were here, but plus Urban was just putting on the full court press because we didn't have any tall people in our offensive line room. So, but I think that it's important to brief. I'm sure that they do some of it. I don't think that we're as thorough as we used to be, but I also think that we've got, our staffs are humongous now. Like, I mean, our like creative department is enormous. Our recruiting department is enormous. I mean, I'm talking like they've got like 10 people that work in the recruiting department. It used to just be 2. And then, so, I mean, I think that there's a lot more touch points and a lot more digging for these kids, but Nevada, what are your thoughts? Do players and coaches who interact with kids on these visits have special briefing training on how to reach these recruits, or is it all ad lib? I think it's a mix of both, but the really good ones are the ones that are briefed and do their homework. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, Ohio State does a pretty good job of at least laying out the basic information about the kids. And as you mentioned, I mean, Pantone used to be the grand wizard of this. I mean, he would be the guy that knew the dog's name and the type of candy that the mom likes and the girlfriend's birthdays. And he was a one-man wrecking crew when it came to that information. And I think the fact, now that he's got kind of a staff, he's a little bit removed from that. I mean, I don't think Ohio State's as good as it because he was really good at it. And when it was, firsthand and when he was kind of hands on with it. But Ohio State does a good job of kind of laying out the basics to guys. And now with, communication, before visits, during visits, after visits, it's easier than ever with social media, with mass communication. I mean, just think about the difference, when I was growing up, you know, a long distance call was $3 a minute. You know what I'm saying? So you weren't communicating with anybody that was out of state or anything after a visit or how things went or whatever it was. Now everybody talks. Every kid that's between 18 and 22 that can't get their nose out of their phone, and it's constant communication. But no, I think Ohio State does a fairly good job of at least laying out the basics for them regarding kids as much as they know about likes and dislikes and the like, so they can kind of match them up well, because matching kids up with the right guys is important too. Because if a guy's a weightlifting kid, then you want to have him with a guy that's a weightlifting guy, or have a guy that's from a particular area. You want to have somebody from a particular area. So I think Ohio State does a pretty good job of that, and you can't be as good at recruiting as they've been. And not be able to do that basic blocking and tackling. I think Ohio State does a nice job on that.
Yeah, and again, that's a great point about long distance calls being $3 a minute and free nights and weekends and all the other stupidity that used to exist back in the day. They had all the telecom giants, trillions or billions of dollars, because it's now there's FaceTime, there's iPads. I mean, kids are so close now that it's just crazy. But I think that pairing guys up with matching personalities is huge. Obviously, if a kid's from the same area, if you can get a kid from Georgia who's on the same side of the ball, that doesn't hurt. Sometimes you got to figure out kind of who should host who on certain weekends. But again, I think it's going to be awesome, and I think it's really going to be good for recruiting going forward. Mello, thank you for the deuce again. I appreciate you, my friend. Thank you for being an Ultra member as well. Thank you for being on here every night. You're my man. I appreciate you. Happy birthday, ZZM, aka Matt. Appreciate you, Matt. You are the man. Happy birthday, brother. I hope you're having a great one. And I meant Devin, not Deving. We always mean Devin. Devin is the best. Devin and Cujo. Appreciate you guys as always. Shout out to our moderators, Kim, Akeem, Doreen. Appreciate all you guys. And Dev. Obviously, Devin. I just said your name. So thank you all. Thank you again, Mello. Gio did it. Thank you for the 10. I'm thoroughly impressed with Tavion Sinclair the more I watch him. Right out of central casting of what a quarterback should look like. Effortless throwing motion. He's going to be a great one here. But he's got a lot of tools. I mean, he's ascended as much as any player I've seen over the last year. I mean, he went from, a good player to, he's number one quarterback in the country. I mean, it's been impressive, and he's put in a lot of work. I mean, he physically changed his body. He's a sturdy dude. He's, massive. Like I said, it'll be interesting to see how big of a year he has. I mean, he doesn't play huge competition, but he doesn't need to. I mean, when you're a quarterback, if you're big and you can throw the ball, like, have yourself a day, my man. Toss his film on right now because I want to watch it again. I haven't watched it in probably a month or so, but yeah, I love his tape. And again, it doesn't matter what I like. Ryan Day likes his tape. Ryan Day went on this guy kind of over, Ryan Montgomery, who, 3 years ago, everybody in the world would have thought he was going to be our quarterback, especially after Luke came here. But we took Tavion Sinclair, and he is just ascended into the heavens. 5-star kid, number one kid in the country now. So yeah, and again, there's a lot of things in this world that I worry about. I don't worry about the quarterback position with Ryan Day in the office. I don't. I refuse to. It'd be like worrying about Jeff Bezos being able to buy DoorDash from Five Guys, tonight or something. I don't worry about that. So with Ryan at the controls, we'll always have great quarterback play. And the good thing is if something happens and Tavion isn't, what we need, then Ryan's ultra aggressive in the portal, man. I mean, he went after Drake May last year. He got Will Howard this year. I mean, he does not sit on his hands if he doesn't like what he sees in that quarterback room. And good. I like it because you know who benefits from that? Us. Because it means that the heat is always going to be on these quarterbacks to be excellent. And, CJ, Dwayne, Justin, the standard is first round quarterback. Like, that's where we're at now. And if it ain't that, Ryan's going shopping, and he's going to find himself a quarterback in the portal. So, Nevada, your thoughts? And again, that's a great observation, Gio. Did appreciate you, my man, and thank you again for the 10. I'm thoroughly impressed with Tavion St. Clair the more I watch him. Right out of central casting of what a quarterback should look like. Effortless throwing motion. He's going to be a great one here. Your thoughts, Nevada?
Well, yeah, I think the interesting thing to me about Tavion St. Clair is that, while he's got the physical tools in abundance, and he's got the throwing motion, and he's got the arm talent, man, he's also got the intangibles. And as well as I do, the intangibles is what sets the good quarterbacks away from the great quarterbacks. He's got the processing ability. He's got the native intelligence. He's got kind of the ability to pattern recognition, so good vision, and he's got leadership capabilities. And those can't be said enough because not everybody's a leader. Not everybody's a natural leader. Not everybody's a born leader. It's manifesting itself in a lot of different ways, and how he conducts himself, in the classroom, on the practice field with his teammates, and also recruiting these guys coming to Ohio State. So I think Damon's got all the attributes that you want in a quarterback, and I agree. Big sturdy kid. Kids didn't look like that when I was in high school. I tell you what, he's a big horse, moves well, could do it all in the pocket, and I think he's going to be a great one in Ohio State. I can't wait to see him.
Totally agree. Andre Duke, if you've been ultra memory, thank you for the 20. Kirk, I can't wait for the golf outing and to meet more Scoop members. I got good questions for you. And Matt McChesney, when your schedule is open. And do you remember Ross Homan from Coldwater? Of course I remember Ross. Ross got there in 06. He was a freshman. 07, he played. Ross was a fantastic player. He's a guy I thought would have had a 10-year NFL career. He had very severe concussions, which, why, again, when you play football, man, I'm just being real. Any day can be your last. You get dinged a couple times, man. It's hard to keep going. And eventually when you have a couple of really bad ones, like it's not smart to keep going. So Ross had some severe concussion issues, but Ross was an incredible player at Ohio State. Smart, tough. I mean, him and James, when we had him and James, I mean, that was as good as we had. And then we had him and Brian Roll. Like, we had some really, really good players, but Ross was one of the most underrated kids in Ohio State history, in my opinion, from Coldwater. I'll let you go with Matt. I'm traveling a little bit coming up, and I've just been slammed, honestly. But Matt McChesney was a guy that I played with in Miami when we were at the Dolphins together. He's a wild man. He's got a gym out in Colorado. Great dude. Really tough dude. He's probably the biggest he played football at Colorado, one of the biggest Colorado Buffalo guys in the world. Has a podcast. Great dude. So I'll get with that on Andre. I appreciate you, brother, as well. And I'm looking forward to the golf outing. Is going to be spectacular. If you guys want to come to the Buckeye Scoop golf outing, you must be a member of BuckeyeScoop.com. But just let me know. It's honestly like an annual at BuckeyeScoop.com is well worth come to that outing. That outing is probably the best day of the year for Buckeye Scoop, and it's crazy. It is a good time. It's chill. The track is beautiful at Youngstown Country Club, so it's always the best day of the year for Buckeye Scoop at the golf outing. Pooh Beard, thank you for the 5. Appreciate you, my friend. What are some new ways of doing things / recruiting strategies that are coming from Sam Petito? How much of our recruiting momentum is due to him at Nevada OH? So, he came from Bama. I don't know how much momentum is due to him as opposed to the team just being great and us being at this crescendo. And plus we're at a moment in time where, Saban's gone. Texas is tough. Oregon's tough. Georgia's tough. But we're kind of we're on that same tier as Georgia right now. It's kind of just the two of us. I think that anytime you can get a guy inside your building who was inside Nick Saban's Alabama building, like, you need to do it. And you just need to say, okay, what did you guys do that's way better than what we do? Because I think that it helps to have a fresh set of eyes. And specifically, I know that he's helped with organization. I know that he's been a big help to Mark, because basically it's kind of like not a second Mark Pantoni, because they don't have the same jobs, but it's kind of like a Diet Coke Mark Pantoni. And those guys are kind of hard to find because, 15 years ago, like, Mark Pantonis didn't really exist at colleges, like the GM role, the overseer, guardian dude, whatever. So, this guy's been around the block, and he's an asset now, especially on these big weekends. I think with organizing everything, getting intel on everything. And again, it's just all about being as sharp as you possibly can be when you're doing this. Like, just be as sharp as you possibly be, because you don't want to miss on these kids. And anytime you can get more accurate, I think it's a huge edge. Pooh Beard 12, again, thanks for remember. Thank you for the 5. Nevada, what are some new things / recruiting strategies that are coming from Sam Petito How much of our recruiting momentum is due to him and also Nevada OH?
I owe again because I'm glad to give the IO anytime. No,
Hey,
look,
it's Saturday and we are taking the clean sheets. So there we go.
we're taking them all. Yes,
Clean sheet is a soccer term for a shutout. So there you go.
yeah,
Go ahead, Nevada.
yes, indeed. No, I think look, Sam. The great thing about Sam is Sam was able to kind of examine up close and personal for years, one of the great recruiting runs of all time, and from one of the great recruiters of all time. And when you go there, like you said, it's not going to be anything dramatic. It's not going to be like, wow, we've invented this, and you call this guy, but little things like in how they've enhanced the Photoshop room to look more homey, and the newspapers, and the little different touches they do. Um, I think that stuff is all great. And does anybody come to Ohio State because of that? No, but it all helps. And it took what was great recruiting already and just made it great plus. And um, I think those are the kind of underrated hires though that you make when you're on a roll. And I think it's the kind of stuff that you do when you want to kind of not only take advantage of their knowledge, but you want to wound the opponent. You want to wound Alabama and take away a guy like that was kind of one of their foundational pieces as part of their recruiting. Take him away from Alabama, injure them more, so that it was kind of like when Jordan Burrow was talking about attack the leg when somebody's legs hurt. Well, hey, when Alabama's hurt, you pick their people apart. You take their players, you take their thing because they're not going to be down forever. But when they're wounded, man, you got to take advantage of the big elephant being wounded. And I think Sam's been a great add to Ohio State, and I think again, I think it's underrated hires like this that'll take Ohio State at the next level. And so I was really glad to see him make this move.
Totally agree. Devin, what is up, brother? I hope you're doing good tonight. Ohio 7715. Thanks for being an ultra member. Thanks for being a moderator. Thanks for being the wrench, as always. Thank you, Kirk and Nevada, for everything y'all do. Scoop family in the chat is the best. Scoop Mafia. Remember, though, try to be nice to everybody, even Michigan people that are in here. Unless they act like a-holes. If they act like a-holes, they're going to get a bullet. But, we give everybody a chance. And this is the fair way to do things in life. Never know where someone is at in life. I totally agree with you. What's bigger, seniors coming back or Chip Kelly coming in? Ooh. Wow, Devin. That is a great question. Holy cow. Oh, man, Nevada. I'm going to let you go first. I've been going first. And also, I'm going to say OH, Nevada.
I owe.
I'm going to let you go. I'm going to
Yeah,
let you go because that is a tough one. That's a really tough one.
yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm gonna go with the players coming back because it was just so many and at so many key spots, and kind of in an unprecedented way, like kind of a shot of adrenaline to the. I mean, think about where we'd be if those guys had all declared for the draft. We'd have been all what super proud on draft day that Ohio State had a bunch of guys drafted, so we could brag to people. Oh, look how many people we had drafted. What does that mean? That means nothing. Instead we get them back. But Chip Kelly coming back is absolutely. The fact that that's even close is really a testament to how great Chip Kelly is and how big his influence is on Ohio State, in my opinion. But I'd give it to the players by a nose, but it's a close call.
Oh, it is really close. I mean, I think that maybe the transfer portal, if you had the transfer portal thing, I think it tips it. God, I really want to go with Chip just because I know that it frees Ryan up to actually be a head coach and not have to do two jobs at once, run the offense and be the head coach. But it's hard when you've got, I mean, Jack Sawyer and JT and Ty. I mean, because where would we be at if all those guys left or half of those guys left? Like, it wouldn't be, I mean, we'd be excited, but it wouldn't be the same as it is with all these guys coming back. So I don't know. I mean, I think that I think that you got to give me the seniors, coming back just because those are like getting set. It's like getting like 8, 7-star recruits, to come to your team basically, and those are your leaders, those are your captains. So it's got to be the seniors. Again, coaches are obviously very important, especially in college football, but give me great players. If you gave me great players and above average coaching, I'll take that just because great players win games. And we got Jack Sawyer and JT and Denzel and Trey Henderson and Emeka. I mean, guys that I never, again, I joke, like, if you did a parlay of all their names and said this 10-leg parlay for them all to come back, I was just like, there's no chance in the entire universe that could ever happen. And it did. So it's got to be the players for me. As much as I really want to say Chip Kelly, it's got to be the players. ZZM, and that was a great question, Devin. I appreciate you, brother. ZZM, happy birthday, my dude. Thank you for the 10. I hope you're having a great day and a fun birthday. Thanks for being an Ultra member as well. Kirk, Nevada, everyone else too. Thank you so much for the shout out, Scoop family. Thank you, Sean Schrock, because he's the guy that gave me the heads up on that. I appreciate you, brother. Shot me a nice text, so that put me on point. So Sean does a lot of stuff behind the scenes, so I appreciate you, my dude, for what you do. Now that we've crushed recruiting, do you think our coaching staff is ready for evaluating us to that next level? No, I do. I mean, I don't know what else you need. I mean, you got Chip Kelly calling the plays down. Ryan can actually give you a head coach. Like, I don't know what else you need. I mean, we've got the most talented roster in school history. We have the most talented coaching staff in school history. And we have a decent schedule. It's not super easy, but, I like the schedule because we start off with Patsies. We start off with Akron and Western Michigan. We don't really play like a real team until we go to Oregon. We play Iowa and teams that can barely score 7 points on air. But I love how this year sets up. I love the expanded playoff. There's just a lot of stuff to love, just in my opinion. Nevada, your thoughts? ZZM, and again, happy birthday again. Thank you for the 10. He says, Kirk and Nevada, everyone else too. Thank you so much for the shout out. And then he also says the question, now that we've crushed recruiting, do you think our coaching staff is ready to evaluate, to elevate us to that next level?
Yeah, I do. And, it's funny because as you talk about the season and the schedule, I think we've all got to kind of reevaluate. I kind of caught myself today, and I mentioned this a little bit yesterday, but I was really thinking about it today. I'm like, in the past, you're really thinking about the season in terms of, okay, we got to be perfect, or we got to, maybe lose one game and win the national championship. And now it's like, with this new schedule, you can lose 2 and win the national championship comfortably. You can probably lose 3 and still be the national champion. So it's got to change everything about the way that you're approaching the season. And I think Ohio State, like you said, Ohio State's ready for the challenge. If we don't win it, we have no excuses. We've got all the pieces that are in place. You have to have a little bit of good fortune to win a national championship. Every team that's won a national championship has got some sort of a break along the way, or some sort of some sort of luck or moment where things turn for them. And this team will be no different. It's the nature of the beast. But yeah, I think this team's ready to go for. I think the program is ready to go from really good to great, and to take over that spot that's been left up by Alabama and Saban leaving. I think Ohio State's ready to take that next stop and become like the powerhouse in college football, and I really do believe that.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that every great team goes through something. They go through, the 14 team went through more adversity than I think any team in college football history. I mean, they lost 2 starting quarterbacks that were both Heisman contenders. They lose to Virginia Tech early in the season. So, again, like there was a lot of sweat going into that playoff projection after that Wisconsin. Now, obviously, we won and we destroyed Wisconsin, which helped vault us ahead of Baylor and. But we don't have to sweat anymore, man, because you could have a loss or two. I mean, really, like we could lose to Oregon and maybe even Michigan and still get in the playoff comfortably. I mean, as long as we don't get housed like 77-0, like I think we're straight. Because we'll beat everybody else handily. So, and then we get to let the talent take over. Which that's the thing I love is that I think about all the talented Ohio State teams that could have won it if they had this system and rectified some errors. Like again, like the '98 team, the '05 team, the '15 team, and how it's all going to get fixed. Like I think it's going to be absolutely outstanding, and I'm super super excited. Again, there's never been a better time in the history of mankind to be an Ohio State fan than right now. Right here, this coaching staff, this team. 12-team playoff. I mean, this is going to be awesome, and I just can't wait. every single day. Nevada, we can wrap this thing up. The puck is about to drop for the NHL Stanley Cup Finals. My kid is dying to watch it. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think the next 24 hours is really going to tell. I think we could see some action. Start hearing about at least some, whether we get some silent commitments, some indications, or some potentially verbal commitments from Ohio State. I think it's that kind of a weekend. It's been kind of going that way for Ohio State, and as I said earlier, I do think we're going to see some action, and I think it's going to be on the offensive line. The foundation, kind of the formation of the best recruited offensive line in OSU history, and I think it starts this weekend.
Totally agree. Appreciate you guys as always. I hope you guys have a great Saturday night. Stanley Cup Finals are about to kick off, or puck drop, whatever you want to call it. So if you guys enjoy this content, please leave us a like, click subscribe, also click that little alert bell. As always, we appreciate you guys. It's incredible that you guys are here each and every night. We had a blast tonight. Have a good night. There's going to be some great sports on. So enjoy yourselves. And again, we appreciate the community so much, the Scoop family. You guys are amazing. If you guys enjoy this, always leave us a like. The likes are huge. They've propelled us up the mountain of YouTube, of the algorithms, and it's all because of you guys. So again, it is always our pleasure to be here with you guys as your humble correspondent. We just love having you guys on here so much. So thank you. Again, I hope you guys have a great rest of your night. Thank you so much, Buckeye Nation. Thank you, Scoop family. We will see you guys 7 o'clock tomorrow. Have a great night. Go Bucks.